2,500 years ago, Athens and Attica created a society of such vision and achievements that there has never since been another society of which there was such universal admiration and detailed study. This Greek society was indisputably the birth of democracy.
The commitment of these citizens to their community was absolutely staggering, beyond anything that later democracies have ever shown. And I think this is something important, that these citizens took it seriously. They really meant what they were able to do. And so they contributed, they participated, they felt they owned the system. It was their system, it was their democracy.
Before the 5th century, both Athens and Attica had no great achievements. It was at this time that a political concept of freedom came into being. This need of freedom was the driving factor to form democracy. The realization that the natural desire for freedom could easily be obtained through compromise was the foundation for the establishment of democracy. Democracy was so important in the Athenians' lives that there was little that Athens did or thought that was not affected by the democratic system they developed from 508 BC and onwards. Athenian democracy was the model for other city-states who wanted to give democracy a try for themselves. Though a radical democracy, it was seen by most Athenians as an integral part of their cultural achievements. Democracy, in its purest form, was not fully established until the 460s BC, when the revered Athenian leaders Ephialtes and Pericles passed the final reforms to weaken the traditional aristocratic councils and strengthen the power of the institutions that represented the entire citizen body. All law courts, the assembly, and all political positions became paid jobs that every citizen was expected to hold. However, democracy's birth occurred many years prior, amid much conflict and extraordinary compromises, crafted by remarkable thinkers and leaders. The man who first thought that Athenian government needed to be reformed was named Solon. Solon had made poetry concerned with the politics of his day and his own reforms. Although not much of his poetry has been recovered, it is quite evident that Solon must have been well aware of how economically backward Athens was. In 594 BC, Solon was appointed archon, which is an elected official. In the 570s BC, he was given special commission to try to resolve the economic and political issues of Athens. Solon is credited with setting up the Council of 400. It was named this for the fact that there were 4 tribes, and 100 members from each tribe were in the council. We don't hear of its operation for the rest of the 6th century. In the end, Solon's reforms did not solve all the problems he had hoped for. Rivalry among the noble families continued, and it is difficult to see how Solon could have stopped this. Even today, the reconstruction of his reforms is still the subject of much debate. It wasn't until 100 years later that another great leader emerged to bring the people of Athens together in compromise. He made the pivotal changes to Athenian government that were necessary to secure a true Greek democracy. This occurred after 36 years of tyrant rule in Athens. The man who did this was Cleisthenes.
It's interesting that we hear of conflicts before the Cleisthenes. These reforms were very smart. They took into account the groundswell of public opinion that was going on in Athens. And Cleisthenes seems to have been very good at perceiving this and then transforming it into a political reform. So we don't hear of any resistance or conflicts after these reforms were introduced, and the interesting thing is that they really integrated Athens.
His changes gave men great power, the power to work together in a corporate sense. They had power over policy, finances, and the entire legal system. This ultimately endowed the men of Athens with the authority to micromanage the entire state.
Then Cleisthenes, whom you credit with the foundation of democracy, and there's no question that his very sophisticated reforms were a crucial breakthrough for democracy as well. The new Council of 500, which if we talk of this council, it is the first really representative council in world history.
A major factor that further coalesced the city-states of Greece was the embroilment with the aggression of the Persian Empire's newly founded power. The Persian Wars were very important in the development of Athenian culture. This was one of the first times that Greece saw that when joined together as one, they were much stronger than when they were separated in individual city-states. Athenians saw this defeat of the Persians as a triumph for their democratic system of government. This was the time that art, architecture, drama, literature, and philosophy all flourished in Greece. Cleisthenes' ideas for democracy created a viable society that survived for decades, able to withstand both internal and external conflicts, while enduring one of history's most violent eras. One of the internal conflicts that the democratic movement had to withstand was the feeling that the government would recklessly enter into wars and spend all of its treasury while heavily taxing the people for their own mistakes. Even today, these same conflicts exist, and they can be so openly discussed because democracy allows such discussion, without fear of reprisal. Athenian democracy, by its definition, is the ultimate compromise. Its basic philosophy of governance is still utilized today to help settle conflicts and to restore the natural freedoms humanity is entitled to enjoy. Democracy was the vehicle that transformed the desire for freedom into actual freedom. It also welcomed the idea that conflicts could be resolved through compromise rather than force. This was not only the birth of democracy, but it was the birth of modern civilization.